Hey, Pentax Tips here. Today I'm going to talk about some of the customization options with the K3 Mark III and the menu navigation on how to get there. Now first, the new menu system on the K3 Mark III is quite different than that on the previous DSLRs. The K3 Mark III apparently has more of a Ricoh GR type menu system. It was a little bit different to get used to. However, after using the new system, it is very sleek and the navigation is a breeze. It's ridiculously customizable, and I think we're all going to enjoy using this new camera. So I'll be covering 5 tips in this video, and you can check the description below for timestamps to jump ahead. The first one I'm going to cover is the user settings on the main dial. Now this allows you to save system preferences to the dial, up to 5 different user settings for the K3 Mark III, and up to 10 user settings in total. So imagine you're playing around with your camera and you're like, oh, I really like my settings right now and I wish I could save them for later. That's what this one is used for. At any time on any setting, you can hit the menu button, go to customization menu number 1, and it's the first menu, save user mode settings. Now I have some basic ones in here. Oh, let me just say, like, only the first 5 are actually saved to the dial, and the rest are just saved in different boxes. Now you can go to one that you want to save. Say I want to save a new one. Oops, enter name. This is a great time to use the touchscreen. It is just an awesome feature for typing to have a touchscreen. You hit OK, and then you have to assign which user setting you want to save it to. Data processing complete. Oops. Now whenever you are moving this dial, you get those exact same settings that you had saved. One thing I hope Ricoh fixes in the future is that when moving this dial, it just says U1, U2, whatever up at the top. I really wish it would tell you that name that you entered. Maybe that'll get upgraded in a future firmware update. The next 2 tips I'd really like to explain are, they work together, and it's the E-dial along with the smart function button. So first, the E-dial button. It's the 3rd control wheel up here along with your back control wheel and your front control wheel. And it's incredibly useful on the K3 Mark III, and its functions change dependent on what setting you have selected on your main dial. These options are in number 2, and we go down to E-dial programming. And you can see some other settings here. This one's going to be basic and just talk about the still images. And this allows you to define the functions that are assigned to your control wheels and to the green button for each setting. So aperture priority, I'm going to use that as an example. Under the basic operation, it allows you to choose the orientation of the first 2 primary control wheels. The green button can be left unset. It can be set to, if you have your ISO set to a specific value, you can hit the green button and it will jump to auto ISO, or it can reset your exposure compensation. And the smart dial, the E function, lets you set what that 3rd control wheel operates. So on previous cameras, including the K3 Mark III, there would be a separate ISO button, which would toggle the rear control wheel and allow you to modify your ISO. But now with the E-dial, I'm able to assign it to the ISO sensitivity, and now when I'm in my aperture value, I can not only adjust my aperture, but also the ISO. And this leads into our next customization topic, which is going to be the smart function. And this is what I meant on how the previous 2 tips work together. The E-dial coordination with the main dial is only active when the smart function is selected to E. So let me show you what I mean by that. If you hit the smart function up top here, it'll show you these 5 options along the top right. And the coordination with the E-dial and the main dial only works the way as I previously described when the smart function is selected to E or E dial. These are all customizable. I'll get into that in a second, but I'll explain the ones here by default. First is the user autofocus. Goes through a couple of presets for either like single focus, continuous focus, different sort of selection areas for your focus points. The next smart function is your E dial, which I just explained. Then it goes to your drive modes for single shot, high, medium, low drive modes. Then for crop and the different grids. And so when these are selected, your smart function is selected. That's what your E dial does. So the E dial will cycle through these grid options when the smart function is selected up there. So we can modify what goes in those 5 options. Again, the customization number 2, smart function, and you can change around those 5 options that appear in there. Say you don't want user autofocus, you can switch any of these settings in place for those 5 smart functions. Okay, so the next one on my list is going to be the info button down here. This is going to bring up the control panel. So if you hit info, it brings up what's called the control panel. It provides you with quick access to so many settings. You can cycle through them with the rear button here, see which ones are preset. If you ever want to change anything or any position of these options on your control panel, you can use the exposure compensation button here, which is up at the top, and that'll bring you to this setting. Or you can go through I think it's your customization menu number 5, and that will bring you to the control panel. And from here, you can select which tile you want to modify. Say you don't want this to be ISO, and you want it to be your Wi-Fi settings. This would be a great way to select Wi-Fi on the fly. Another good one in that list was your focal length. When you're using manual lenses, you don't want to turn off your camera, turn it back on. You can select something on your control panel to allow you to quickly change your focal length. But this is still a bit of menu diving, having to select whichever option from such a large control panel. If you want to assign a function to a physical button, you need to customize the FX button, which is our next tip. So we go again to the customization menu number 2, FX buttons, and that will show a little graphic of all the physical buttons that are able to be customized, such as the shake reduction button on the side of the camera here, and the raw button. So say you don't use shake reduction too often, you can change that shake reduction button to say horizon correction. Now whenever you hit that shake reduction button on the side, you'll access the options for auto horizon correction. Yeah, so those were my 5 tips. I have one bonus one for you here. Say you're messing around with all of your settings and you want to quickly get them back. You made a change, you don't know what you did. Go down to your wrench option, very bottom, number 8, and there's reset. Shows the items that you can reset. You can pick and choose if you want or do the whole thing. Execute reset. There, back to basic settings. However, for your top button, the user settings here, you'll have to go back to the customization menu, number 1, and it gives you the options to reset your user modes there. Great, we made it through it. If you like this content and you want to see more like it, please make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks.